I'm not doing an intro. We're already like over halfway through 2025. Here are my favorite albums of last year. I'm sorry I suck so much.
Okay.
Brat Summer? I hardly know her. Wait, no, the video just started. Wait, don't leave. Hold on. Brat is not my favorite album of 2024, in case you didn't know how numbers worked, but I absolutely think that Brat was the album of the year. Not even necessarily the best album, but like, come on, no other record in 2024 had the cultural impact that Brat did. I can't think of another time a presidential candidate publicly endorsed an album the year they were running. I mean, it's not like Joe Biden was talking about Eternal Atake. What the fuck? Charli XCX has been at the forefront of pushing pop music forward for almost a decade, and Brat really feels like the culmination of everything that's made her such a defining figure in modern music. Let's talk about this production. Fusing her PC music roots with aspects of mid-2000s electro, the sound of Brat is... Rough Criminal described it as mad scientist club beats, and yeah, that's pretty perfect. A.G. Cook, Gesaffelstein, Hudson Mohawk, it's got the perfect roster to cook up some of the wildest electro-pop you'll ever hear. You've got your more standard dance pop tunes like 360 and Apple, some of the catchiest tracks she's ever made, but plenty of this record just sounds batshit insane. The pulsating electrical saws on Von Dutch, the wobbly Jersey Club sound on Club Classics, the bizarre blend of grime, Brazilian funk, and like chamber pop on Everything Is Romantic, and vocally, Charli makes so many strangely captivating choices. I have no clue how she heard the production for Sympathy Is a Knife and thought of that melody for the chorus. The record's softer, more intimate moments sound great too, like I Might Say Something Stupid and I Think About It All the Time. Speaking of intimacy, Charli's writing is outstanding throughout Brat. We've got plenty of quotable lines with Charli channeling the most girl boss slay energy she's ever had. But the thematic cores of Brat are deeply reflective. Yeah, it's a hell of a party, but sometimes we step away from the dance floor and head into the bathroom, where we take a look at ourselves in the mirror. Charli, now 32, is grappling with the feelings of aging, the superficiality of the pop star lifestyle, seeing all of her friends around her mature and start families while she's still just bumping that. Suddenly, the braggadocio from Charli reads more like an attempt at distracting herself from these thoughts, one that does work for a time, but comes crashing down on track 9, So I.
This song is about a person who is really, really special to me who's no longer with us.
A dedication to the late great Sophie, this song is heartbreaking. It's the one moment on the album that completely strips itself bare of the club lights and just crumples onto the floor.
I don't know, you always said it's okay to cry, so I know I can cry, so I cry.
If I had to cite any criticisms I have, I definitely prefer the first half of the album to the second. I still really enjoy the later tracks, but most of my favorites show up towards the beginning, and there's a few songs that I don't really return to all that often. B2B is probably my least favorite on the album. Again, it's not bad, but it just doesn't do a ton for me. I find it a little annoying. I understand that the repetitive feel of the track is definitely intentional, but I think a song like Rewind executed a similar idea a little better. I don't know, maybe that's a hot take though. What do you think, Kendrick Lamar?
Back to back, I like that record.
Oh man. In any case though, Brat is a wonderful album that deserves all of its praise and then some. Favorite tracks are 360, Sympathy Is a Knife, and Everything Is Romantic. Man, I'm green.
Welcome to another episode of our Orchid Care series. Today we will talk about what to do with our orchid when all of the flowers are spent.
To any of my Spanish-speaking viewers, I apologize in advance for these pronunciations. Hi, Kelly Uchis. Hi, Kelly. Hi. Sorry, I'm normal. Callie is one of the coolest people on the planet. I don't think I've ever disliked anything she's released. Her gorgeous voice and ability to blend elements of Latin and Western music never disappoints. And Orquídeas might be my favorite to come from her yet. The variety displayed across these 14 tracks is wild. It makes a lot of sense that this album is named after flowers because the sonic palette is so lush and vibrant. It feels like every song has at least one little moment that I look forward to every time I listen to it, be it the tempo switches on Muñequita, this gorgeous vocal melody on Tu Corazón Es Mío, or the sugary sweet synth on Igual Que Un Ángel. God, that makes me so happy every single time. Also, I just gotta say, the drums on this album, one track might be taking cues from house and Baltimore club, the next from reggaeton and Latin electronic, and the next from UK bass. I'm pretty much entirely unfamiliar with this album's production team apart from Soundwave, but I'm definitely gonna need to look more into these folks. The vocal features kill it on here too, with my favorites definitely being El Alfa and JT on Muñequita. But I've gone too long without mentioning it. I have to talk about the song from this album. Track 6, Te Mata. I'm still a relative newcomer to a lot of non-Western styles of music, so this song kinda knocked my damn socks off. Yes, I am aware that is the whitest phrase I could have possibly said, leave me alone. I'm sure there are hundreds of songs that sound like Te Mata, but I haven't been exposed to all too many over here in the States. American artists really aren't making music that sounds like this. What an absolute masterpiece of a song. Apparently this is an example of the genre bolero, which originates from Cuba. If anyone has any more recommendations for stuff that sounds like this, please let me know in the comments. Orquídeas might not be the most groundbreaking or revolutionary album of 2024, but you'll be hard-pressed to find a record that better fits the mantra of all killer, no filler. Favorite tracks are Igual que un ángel, Te Mata, and Tu Corazón es Mío.
Potential worlds could be evaporated by your wish.
Prior to 2024, I had no knowledge of electronic musician SZA. I just saw this album being discussed online and I figured I'd give it a try, as I was already trying to get more familiar with EDM that year. Despite Weight of the World being her debut album though, don't make the mistake I did and assume that they started making music recently. Her SoundCloud has tracks dating back to as early as 2019, and I'd be willing to bet there's even more stuff from earlier on I'm unaware of. Making music for over 5 years with no full-length album inevitably puts a lot of expectations on the debut. SZA's mentioned how worried they were about this project. Apparently it's been in the work for several years.
Like, I took like almost 3 years off from just releasing music. I remember when I was making the album, I had so many ideas of like how to like push the sound of the album forward in like a unique way.
So in other words, you could say she had the weight of the world on her shoulder. Even before I learned more about the EDM and bass music scenes, the first time I listened to this album, I could tell it was something big. There's this monumental emotional weight to this record, one that I could still parse without knowing any context behind it. Let's start simple. On a bass level, this album sounds unbelievable. The dynamics and panning skills on display here are crazy. I can't stop thinking about the first pre-drop of Get a Grip, the way it ping-pongs around my brain before slicing open. It makes me feel like the drums just ricocheted off the walls of my skull and critical hit my frontal lobe. This is a compliment, by the way. The whole record is filled with moments like this, mixing and production tricks that I don't fucking understand, but somehow result in every song feeling like it's a living organism. Caught Up in Circles accelerates up to 2 million miles per hour. The textures of In Your Face feel like they're seconds away from breaking the entire song apart. Dope One. Fucking Dope One. If I didn't exclude songs from this album list on my top 10 favorite songs of 2024, Dope One would have been in the top 5. It is the most earth-shattering, universe-collapsing, anime god mode final battle music in the world, and every time I finish it, I feel like I barely survived. I should also mention, Dope One is one of 3 songs with features, and all of them do fantastic. Neonix and Oldswell contribute production to create some of the most standout tracks, and K-Mo's vocals on Heart 123 are a really potent change of pace. That's the other thing about Weight of the World. It's not just a sick-ass bass album, it means something. Through 4 years of mental turmoil and self-doubt, SZA persevered, even when the fog seemed too thick to see through. Songs like Take My Energy and Dancing on My Own feel so raw and honest. Despite having 0 lyrics, they communicate the drive to keep going, even when the weight of the world is on your shoulders. To quote SZA herself, "I found myself writing this album, and I hope you were able to find yourself in it too. I will keep going, and I will keep making music." Even if I don't end up with any desired outcome, I'm happy to be here and alive, for once in my life. There is nothing we can't do. Favorite tracks are Get a Grip, Dope One, and Dancing on My Own.
Bum, 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 bum.
Like Sizzy, Tracy Breaks was an artist I was entirely unfamiliar with before 2024. I was introduced to her a little thanks to a feature on another album I heard that year, but I still went into My Twee Monsters mostly blind. So did I like it? I made the creature on the album cover in Ponytown. Originally conceptualized as a record about imaginary friends, My Twee Monsters is still about that, I think. Yeah, I'll be honest, I'm not entirely confident what My Twee Monsters is about. This album's themes are so dense and intertwined, I'm still thinking about it months after my first listen. The first song, Her Insides Meet God's, acts less like a mission statement and more a kaleidoscopic-esque train of thought, ideas weaving in and out of two short verses.
Will a tree spill your solvent, dissolve the levee? Needles stem from the vivisection of memory.
Which means the more you dig into your lived experiences as memories, the more you sort of like try to unearth things and understand things and loop them in the back of your mind over and over and over again, the more warped they kind of get and the more they kind of hurt to experience. Until they don't anymore.
Some of the larger themes I personally got from it were mortality, imagination as an escape for past trauma, dissociation and body dysmorphia, relating that to ideas of artificial humanoid creatures, self-harm, self-modification as a metaphor for change, and I still feel like I'm just on the surface level here. There's also constant references to other media, mythology, and religions. There's the set of 5 symbols referred to as Square One, each representing a different core value in Tracy's life. There are songs that are strictly from Tracy's perspective, songs that seem entirely allegorical, and everything in between. This album is 30 minutes long. Maybe I'm overanalyzing, but there's at least one song I can definitively say I fully understand. The final track, Carbon Head. I feel like there's this thing that can happen to transgender artists sometimes where people reviewing or analyzing their works can interpret every aspect of the art as an allegory for being trans. I don't want to do that with this album. I think there are some songs on the record that could be read that way, but I wouldn't boil down any of them to be only about the trans experience. Carbon Head, though, is explicitly a song recounting transphobia that Tracy has dealt with throughout her life. As the last song on such a conceptually abstract record, Carbon Head's raw, blunt lyrics hit so hard in contrast to everything else. It also just helps that it sounds great. It's super catchy. The chorus is really fun to sing along to. I should probably talk about how this music actually sounds, huh? As unpredictable and ever-changing as the writing, My Twee Monsters' production is jaw-dropping at every turn. If ever there was an album to fit the term nightcore bro step, it'd be this one. Tracks like Orphan Source and Endorphin Heist sound like nothing else ever made. Unbelievable atmosphere is built in Her Insides Meet God's, Vice Heart, and Fireside.
Thaumaturgy.
Shifting mechanics, cinematic swells, ticking clocks, it's theatrical as fuck. And like how its writing stands out from the rest of the track lists, Carbon Head's bitter alternative indie rock makes for such a powerful finale. I also love the vocals on this album. Given how much of this record feels like an artificial mimic of perceived truth, it makes perfect sense for a vocoder to serve as the main vocal tool throughout the album. The performances are so raw, but the vocal effects sit in this musical uncanny valley, feeling both human and inhuman at the same time.
Expunge your thoughts until you mirror your walls. You're alone again already.
It reads less like a human utilizing technology and more as technology attempting to imitate human emotion. Almost like an automaton of sorts. My Twee Monsters is a creative triumph. Thank you, Tracy, for this beautiful, vulnerable album I'll be thinking about for a very long time.
The cycle looping over and over again.
Favorite tracks are Orphan Source, Vice Heart, and Carbon Head.
Why is everything chrome?
Everything is chrome in the future.
And after 2 albums from artists I'd never heard of before, this album I knew would be in my top 10 the second the damn thing was announced.
Chromacopia.
When we last saw Tyler, he was killing off the personas he had portrayed throughout his music career. And I don't mean that metaphorically, I mean he literally... Tyler has always been an expert at playing characters and world building for his albums, so when the first teasers for Chromacopia came out, many people, myself included, were expecting another big concept album. What's fascinating about this record is, despite his face being hidden behind a mask, this is by far the most bare and vulnerable we have ever seen Tyler. Chromacopia is about a lot of things. Ideas weave in and out of the narrative throughout the track list. I think Professor Sky is my favorite analysis on the album.
Potentially, this is not a song in 2 years, because there's no question whether or not you are going to keep it, because you will not have the choice. That choice was made for you.
But the core idea behind every part of this record is, as depicted by the album cover, the gray area, how things aren't pure black and white. Take Your Mask Off discusses how societal norms can withhold people from expressing their true selves.
Ain't too fond of them gays, you don't deny your weight. Since a kid, you knew something was up. Had you thinking God would hate you, so you covered it up. Gotta hide how you live, what you really enjoy. So got a wife, got a kid, but you be fucking them boys.
But Tyler also acknowledges his hypocrisy in this. His choice to make art puts him under a similar pressure, forced to maintain an ego while sacrificing elements of his personal life.
Claim you never wore a mask and how you don't get embarrassed. Boy, you selfish as fuck. That's really why you scared of being a parent.
Hey Jane is a conversation between Tyler and a partner about dealing with an unexpected pregnancy. Tyler is scared. He doesn't feel responsible enough to raise a child, but he acknowledges that, as a cis man, he could never understand the emotional and physical turmoil of actually carrying a baby. Jane expresses feelings of wanting to keep the baby, fearing she might not get another chance, wanting Tyler to stay, but also saying she is capable of doing this on her own. The way this track is so honest and non-judgmental from both sides is so wonderful, one of Tyler's best storytelling tracks ever.
No matter the decision of day, I just want us to be cool either way. No pressure.
Even with the topic of Tyler's absent father, something he has not shied away from talking about in his music, this record gives more perspective to that. Yes, Tyler is angry at his dad for what he did, but there's still a part of him that misses him, a fear that he is becoming the man his father once was to his mother, culminating with his actual mother saying at the end of Like Him,
"It was my fault, not yours, not his, it was my fault. I'm sorry. You know? It was my fault, not him, because he always wanted to be there for you."
Flower Boy, Igor, Call Me If You Get Lost, all have great writing, but Chromacopia is Tyler's biggest narrative triumph in my eyes. He's also still got plenty of great bars and quotables. I am so dumbfounded that I have never heard this line on Thought I Was Dead.
Wait, y'all wanna take what I got, but y'all do not got what it take.
Like, how has no one ever said that before? It's so clean, it's so catchy, it's perfect. But this guy isn't called Tyler the writer, he's the creator for a reason. The sonic world on Chromacopia? Neo-soul, Memphis rap, synth-funk, psychedelic rock, fucking samba jazz. It's a Tyler album. Almost every song is a completely new combination of sounds and inspirations. This is by far the Tyler record with the most live instrumentation, and goddamn does it kick ass because of that. The bouncy hand percussion on I Killed You, the gorgeous string swells on Tomorrow, the killer bass courtesy of Thundercat on several tracks, the horns on every song.
We don't got advantages. We don't match their image.
Like every single.
Trap, these niggas is sad.
Like literally all of them. The features on this album are also fantastic, striking a really nice middle ground between how Igor and Call Me If You Get Lost use their guest performances. Standout features for me are Everyone on Sticky, it's like a posse cut speedrun, it rocks. Tizo Touchdown on Darling I. Like, goddamn. And of course, Doechii on Balloon. I can't get enough of the way she delivers. I let it in, I let it out. I let it in, I let it out. Listen, Tyler's previous 3 records are amazing, and I love them to death. But for my money, this is his magnum opus. Favorite tracks are Darling I, Sticky, and Tomorrow. I felt the light inside, I felt the fire, and I'm proud to say this is my favorite album from Tyler. Oh shit, that was kind of heat. Get me in the booth.
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT!
This is my impression of me at a restaurant with my friend, but they forgot to bring the condiments to our table, and my friend wants me to alert the waiter to bring some over to us, but they're all the way across the restaurant, so I have to yell in order for them to hear me. You see, in improv, we call that a callback, because the other video I made for the Kendrick song,
It's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
Can we all just collectively agree that Kendrick Lamar just won 2024? GNX is maybe the most victory lap feeling album I've ever heard. It's the sound of the greatest artist of our lifetime at the top of his game. And for someone who had to fight so hard to be respected by so many people, having finally earned that, Kendrick goes back home. I know calling this album a West Coast celebration is like the most surface level analysis I can do of it, but like, how else am I supposed to read this? Aside from SZA and Roddy Ricch, I had not heard of a single featured musician. All were just smaller local LA artists. Heart Part 6 is a tribute to Top Dog Entertainment, the story behind its rise, and the close friends Kendrick made from it. Fucking Reincarnated literally uses a Tupac beat, and Kendrick delivers his rapping exactly like Pac did.
Concentrated thoughts on who I used to be, I'm shedding skin. Every day a new version of me, a third of me demented, cemented in pain, juggling the pros and cons of fame.
This record isn't trying to be another Mr. Morale or T-Pab level concept album. It's an expression of joy, of pride for one's home city. It's still made by Kendrick Lamar though, so yeah, the bars are like unbelievably good. Do you realize how much respect and praise you have to have earned to say the line, bing bop boom 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 bop bam, the type of shit I'm on you wouldn't understand? Absolute fire. Soundwave handles a lot of the production on this album, and I have not heard rap songs this addictively replayable in a very long time. Peekaboo?
Pull off in a lamb, double pocket all that times, mister, get off on your mans. If he hand you disrespect, you better follow up with hands.
I see why they call Kendrick the Boogeyman. This is the most sinister beat on the planet. I love the strings on Luther. I love how Man at the Garden builds in intensity. I love this little on Squabble Up. Oh yeah, and there's also the aforementioned. Yeah, Not Like Us was so good that Mustard pretty much made a sequel, and it's just as fire. Kendrick's also the master of vocal delivery. I mentioned him channeling Tupac, but there's plenty more great little vocal moments.
I feel good, get the fuck out my face. Look good, but she don't got no ties.
The guests do great work on here too. SZA is amazing as always and can do no wrong, and as for the people I hadn't heard of before, they absolutely steal the show. AC Chike on Peekaboo, and the trio of Peso, Hida J3, and Young Threat on the title track are my favorites. Sorry, real quick tangent. Why do so many music nerds not give a fuck about this song? Music lover rule number 4080. Rate your music ratings are shady. How is the title track by far the lowest rated? This shit is fantastic. The stuttery staccato rhythm blends so well with everyone's style, and the refrain of "Tell 'em blank did it" being repeated with everyone's name is so fun. Also, how is this experimental hip-hop? It's a little unconventional, I guess, but it's not like whatever. Kendrick Lamar, good. Kendrick album, good. Kendrick Lamar.
Right.
Favorite tracks are Squabble Up.
With him, there's some bitch in him, that's a lot of bitch. Don't hit him, he got kids.
Peekaboo.
What they talking about? They ain't talking about nothing. What they talking about? They ain't talking about nothing. What they talking about? They ain't talking.
And the title track.
Who showed you how to run a blitz?
Tell him hit it, Diddy.
Who put the West back?
Okay, yeah, let's scrap it. Yeah, let's scrap it.
Quadeca has had quite the dramatic evolution from a corny YouTube rapper who played FIFA games to an experimental artist, blah blah blah, whatever. I feel like every single discussion of Ben's music online is obligated to mention the stupid stuff he made when he was like 16 before they can praise his newer work.
You are the youngest person ever.
As someone who's been following him since 2019, it's been really fun to watch him grow and mature side by side with my own music taste doing the same. But I think we're at the point where we should just start praising him for his current output on its own merits. So let's do that. I took so long with these goddamn videos that Ben's next full-length concept album, Vanisher Horizon Scraper, is already out. But between the sessions making music for I Didn't Mean to Haunt You and Vanisher, there were several ideas that didn't fit into either story, but Quad still wanted to flesh out. That's what Scrapyard is, a mixtape pretty much defined by its variety. Since Ben didn't have to stick to a solid narrative, each song could be its own completely different world. Scrapyard jumps between so many influences and genres throughout its runtime, oftentimes fusing styles that normally shouldn't work well together. Even If I Tried is this bizarre blend of folktronica and art pop, but with like borderline Playboy Cardi vocal deliveries.
Miss, even if I tried, I couldn't miss.
honest. Miss, even if I tried, I'll tell you this.
The melody on What's It To Him feels like it could have come from Revolver-era Beatles, genuinely, but it's produced like something that could have never been made within that time period.
I like to hide a little less. I like to cry a little more.
I don't even know how to describe a song like Dust Cutter. It's simultaneously eerie, soul-crushing, and strangely beautiful. The textures on display here are head-spinning. Whatever the shit is, it's... But it's not just that these songs are weird, they're also so fun to listen to. You Don't Know Me Like That, A La Carte, Easier, all are endlessly replayable with how catchy and infectious they are. And on the more technical side of things, even as someone who doesn't produce music, I find tons of production moments that wow me, like how smoothly the drums fill out the mix of Guess Who when first dropped. Or this otherworldly synth tone on the outro to Under My Skin.
If you find me under your skin again, maybe we could be friends. Maybe that'll make too much sense.
The non-linear approach to this album doesn't just apply to the sound either. Ben also gets to cover a wider array of writing topics. The title of Way Too Many Friends might lead you to expect a brag track, but it's the exact opposite. It's not, I got way too many friends, I'm so cool and popular. It's, I got way too many friends, and I feel overwhelmed and guilty for not spending the amount of time with each of them that they deserve.
Don't call you enough, not as much as I intend. I don't say it enough, but I'll take you in.
Pretty Privilege hits really close to home for me personally, discussing body dysmorphia and how when called pretty, your brain can't properly process it as a sincere compliment, so your only instinct is to respond, why? This lyric in particular feels like it was taken straight from my own psyche. Like, Quad, who the fuck let you into my brain, dude? Towards the final leg of the record, we get the 1-2 punch of You Tried That Thing Where You're Human and Guide Dog. I know I personally have had the thought several times, I don't feel like I'm the correct way a human is supposed to be. Being a human is hard and scary and confusing. I wish I could just be something else. It's a song that can be interpreted in multiple ways, from the spiritual to the literal, but the core idea of feeling like you don't belong because of who you are remains the same. And Guide Dog follows that with the most barren, stripped-back sound on the whole record, essentially just Ben and an acoustic guitar. It writes about love with such a gentle vulnerability. Like Tried That Thing Where You're Human, the metaphor of a guide dog can be interpreted in multiple ways. And I gotta say, there's something really lovely about having my own interpretation of the song's lyrics for so long, and then finally hearing Quad's story.
I wrote that song to the person that I love who is just actually has horrible eyesight.
Really?
And is like the first line where it's like, it's that time at the end of the night when you're blind. That's like her taking her glasses off and just can't see to go into bed. And I'm like, oh, I'll walk you. And then that just that one moment, it was like, oh, there's something that was kind of beautiful about that. And then I just wrote the whole thing.
Also have to mention the two features. Brakence gives one of my favorite performances he's ever done on A La Carte. Something about the softer tone of voice with this instrumental is hypnotizing.
You said if we make love and I start to cry, then I can let it all out, shouldn't rationalize, but goddamn.
And closing the record with a piano ballad duet with Kevin Abstract. God, this album rocks. It seems like we'll be getting more conceptual, narrative-driven work in the future, and I'm super excited for that too, but I hope that Quad keeps experimenting with less linear art as well, because even though technically these songs weren't made with a full album in mind, this still almost reached my top 3. Favorite tracks are Dust Cutter, A La Carte, and Even If I Tried.
What is your business?
To make you smile?
So Taylor Swift released an album last year. People had opinions on it. I saw a lot of people saying it was her worst album yet, that it was bloated and horribly written, but honestly, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. Hell, I loved it so much that I even saw Tyler live in concert with some friends. Look, I took a video.
Don't know my schedule on the field. Think you're Taylor Swift!
At least I think that's her. I didn't listen to the Taylor Swift album. I have no opinions on it. I just thought that would be funny. Sorry to any Swifties watching. 3 years after the monumental artistic statement of Nurture, Porter Robinson returned with his third studio album, Smile. With Nurture, Porter took an intimate look at himself in the mirror and confronted his insecurities as an artist, creative, and human being. That album felt very isolated and lonely, which makes sense given the context it was released in. Smile, on the other hand, now shows a Porter placed into the limelight. He got his wish. He's a full-on pop star with millions of fans worldwide. I think if Smile could be boiled down to one sentence, it would be, having fans is really weird and sometimes unhealthy for both parties involved, but it's also not always a bad thing. We've all seen creators countless times establish boundaries between their audience and personal lives. Parasocial relationships are well-worn territory to be talked about by this point. What I love so much about Smile is how it acknowledges the bad and good of this dynamic, from both sides.
What's the difference between authentically connecting with an audience as a performer and crafting a parasocial relationship? They're the same thing. Our relationship is valid, just not intimate. Parasocial, non-derogatory.
Lead single Cheerleader describes an obsessive fan of Porter's, someone who clearly idolizes him in an unhealthy way.
'Cause if you're not mine, I'd rather see you burn alive.
But Porter also admits that this attention can be as addicting to him as it is to the fan.
My cheerleader thought she needed me, but I need her.
Other songs like Perfect Pinterest Garden, Mona Lisa, and Everything to Me delve further into this dynamic. And I think every other theme on this record stems from how weird it is to be famous and popular in general, whether it makes Porter self-conscious of the way he's perceived and acts,
I dreamed of cutting my Achilles heel, wanting people like me.
or reflect on earlier points in his life now recontextualize.
I found a letter, dear future. Take care of the person we'll both be eventually.
Culmination of all these ideas is on track 3, Russian Roulette. How do you live with the knowledge that you alone make enough money to provide for any friend you have? How do you live with the image of your face being sold via merchandise and branding? I don't know. And I don't think Porter knows either. But he does. He chooses to live. This album sounds so fucking good, oh my god. The softer, more organic feel of Nurture gets covered in pink paint and glitter on this album, and it's electric. Much of the sound of this album comes from Porter's newfound passion for the guitar, wanting to embrace simplicity and cliche with the instrument, supplemented by his skill as an electronic artist.
I was really wanting to embrace like my own guitar amateurism. I wanted to embrace cliche, I wanted to embrace like simplicity because it's all I had. One of the reasons I think that like Warped Tour, MySpace, scene-y electro pop era appealed to me so much is because it's like, it felt like what I'm doing in reverse, right? I'm this like electronic music person that's making rock music, or trying to for the first time. And I think a lot of that like MySpacey scene emo runoff was people who were in these Warped Tour bands like trying to make electronic music for the first time. Like even Skrillex was that.
And man, do these songs kick ass. Knock Yourself Out XD is such an explosive, sugary opening with the twee little synth melody and the
And I'm everything you talk about.
Perfect Pinterest Garden and Kitsune Maison Freestyle are some smooth as hell Y2K electropop. They remind me of an era where Like a G6 played on the radio, and I like that. The softer moments sound great too, like Year of the Cup and Easier to Love You. And the bangers on this album? Bro, is there really no happiness? Mona Lisa featuring Frost Children. The 5.5 minute build up to the drop on Russian Roulette. Fucking Cheerleader. When he played this live as the last song of the entire show, I think my lungs almost gave out from screaming. I don't give number ratings or any other kind of scores to music most of the time, but I'll make an exception just this once. Smile by Porter Robinson gets a out of 10. Favorite tracks are Cheerleader, Russian Roulette, and Mona Lisa.
Don't kill yourself, you idiot.
You will always be a monster.
I know.
The album I'm about to talk about comes with a very crucial content warning, and while I'll try to leave explicit details out as much as possible, I strongly recommend anyone watching read the warning before watching this video further. If the topics described sound too much for you, the chapters will be timestamped so you can skip past it. Man. I want to be careful with what I say about this record. Monarch of Monsters is Violet Pony's 20th album, and arguably the most impactful outside of just her core fanbase. Music lovers all across the internet were showering Monarch with praise, many of whom had never heard of Violet before. Because of this, some discourse around the album has been messy, to say the least. This is an album about a lot of very scary, serious, and upsetting topics, but used to tell an emotionally impactful story. None of this record is there just for shock value, so please try to keep that in mind. So let's start with the actual music. It's really fucking good, you guys. Violet has stated many times its love of progressive rock, and in particular, Genesis and Peter Gabriel. And with Monarch, C finally gets to wear those influences on her sleeve for an entire record. And hot damn, is this one of the most dynamic prog rock albums you'll ever hear. The tense guitar tones and marimbas on Survivor's Guilt.
Am I really worthy to be chasing any dream when I'll always be my worst mistakes?
The absolutely bonkers time signature changes on the Wallflower Equation. The gothic orchestral flourishes on Revenge Fantasy. But Monarch owes its sonic inspiration to another rock scene as well, the avant-garde movement in 1970s New York known as No Wave. In what was used as an outlet to express the disenfranchised hellscape artists were living in, the sound of No Wave is outright hostile towards the listener. And Violet pays tribute to this movement flawlessly by channeling that same energy on songs like Play Dead, and Princess Cuckoo. As much as the instrumental work and production on Monarch are stunning though, it's the vocal performances from Violet that blew me away the most. She's always been a great vocalist, but here it pushes its singing talents to an almost uncomfortable level. We do have some gentle vocal performances, Huntress in particular is absolutely gorgeous, but a good deal of singing on this record can only be described as manic. Sometimes on songs like The Heretic, these unconventional inflections are used in favor of the song's catchiness, making for some absolutely killer choruses. Other times, screams are so guttural I feel like my soul is being torn out of my chest. And in some cases, the performances on this record are utterly soul-crushing.
And everyone looked away, as I believed them.
Which I guess is as good a segue as any to talk about the content of this record. Violet describes the story of Monarch as an allegory for how trauma, loneliness, and selfishness can turn you into a horrible person, about endeavoring to stay alive even within a terminal state of regret. How, in this regret, experiencing any happiness at all feels insincere and undeserved, about perpetuating cycles of toxicity and wickedness because it's all you've known, especially in denial of being wrong, and ultimately learning to find purpose and self-love in that din. The in-universe narrative of the record centers around two characters, Wolf, the protagonist and stand-in for Violet, and Arya, a godly deity that observes Wolf's existence in the mortal plane before they meet face to face. The full narrative is fleshed out in the accompanying novella, which I can't recommend enough for anyone engaging with this record. It gives every song so much more emotional weight. Wolf spends the first leg of this record fully indulging in her violent impulses, believing that she can't possibly be more than the monster she views herself as. Many of these early songs see Wolf talking to herself, feeding into the narrative in her own head of not deserving to feel happiness. By the Wallflower equation, the once reserved Pegasus has completed her transformation into the beast she feels she always has been. The following songs do not pull any punches with how distressing and harrowing they are. Princess Cuckoo is a song about sexual assault and violence, a horrifying, necessary song for the story of the album, though I probably won't be listening to this track ever again. And then, there's Sludge. For a song with one of the most fantastical concepts in the universe of the story, Sludge manages to feel like the most literal metaphor out of any song on the album in spite of that. In an event known as the Daybreak of Red Rivers, Wolf stood in front of a crowd of civilians, reciting every sin committed within her life. She speaks for several hours before gouging herself in a public display of sacrificial suicide. And as her corpse is defiled in every way imaginable, Wolf ascends to the afterlife. This is it. This is the big one. The centerpiece of the album. The 22-minute progressive rock behemoth Violet has wanted to make since she first heard Supper's Ready by Genesis as a kid. It's heartbreaking, it's cinematic, it's vile, it's cruel, it's disturbing, it's the way Wolf chooses to be remembered. As Violet stated, this terminal state of regret leaves one feeling unworthy of happiness. Wolf truly believes this is the only punishment fitting for someone like her, a life defiled of her own doing, ensuring her fate as an irredeemable monster. That is, until she reaches the afterlife. Upon death, Wolf confronts Arya, the Huntress, the Farseer, the one who cursed Wolf in their act of selfishness. And now, as two immortal beings, Wolf finds new purpose as Arya's hunting dog. Then, of course, the wolf and the lamb fell in love. Huntress is a song that kind of breaks me. I don't want to get too overly personal here, but I am someone who is very scared of being vulnerable and intimate with people, especially with any feelings of romance. Wolf finding love from another while she still could not love herself is already powerful, but even still, in these moments of embrace, she yearns to be punished. All she's known is self-hatred. She can't accept the idea of love without some form of pain, and Arya just refuses. Arya treats Wolf with a gentle tenderness she's never experienced, so gentle that it almost hurts. That's the song being shown on the album cover. This artwork isn't powerful because it depicts a form of assault. It's powerful because we've heard depictions of assault on this album, and we know for a fact that this is fully consensual. And through Arya's love, through their respect and patience and kindness, Wolf is able to begin to heal. A lot of Monarch grapples with the idea of forgiveness. Forgiveness to those that have caused you trauma in the past, forgiveness from those you've caused harm, and forgiveness to oneself. I think everyone has done things in their past that they regret. I'm sure many of you watching have felt undeserving of happiness or love at some point. I have. But, as Arya perfectly puts it on the final song,
Conceal not your mistakes, but allow them to be a sputtering torch. Illuminate the path for those that follow. To be gentle, to be kind. This is the way.
Stay strong, everyone. It does get better. Favorite tracks are Play Dead, Play Dead, Revenge Fantasy, and Huntress. Okay, that was a lot. We're almost at the finish line, but before that, here are 10 honorable mentions.
What's up, Dochi? Hi, girl. You know, it's been a little minute since you and
Several people, including Top of TDE himself, compared the feeling of Dochi's newest mixtape to the feeling when Kendrick Lamar first released Section 80. Very high praise. and I could not agree more. With how much personality, technical skill, creativity, and heart are displayed on this record, it's hard not to. Alligator Bites Never Heal is the kind of record that's so good, it tells you that this is nowhere near the peak of Doechie's artistic drive. She's gonna be a fucking superstar, and I could not be happier. Favorite track is Nissan Ultima. This is the first rap song in a very long time to give me ludicrous energy, and that makes me very happy.
Because I hated myself for so long just to figure out that it was never my fault.
Thanks in large part to my newfound love for Paramore, I've started checking out more stuff in the emo and pop punk scenes, and Feeling Not Found was a great time. Fantastic choruses and melodies throughout. Each track is super catchy, killer instrumentation, and some nice introspective writing. I talked about it in the honorable mentions of my top 10 songs list, but favorite track is Where Blue Light Blooms. Go check out that video if you want a little more of my thoughts on it.
It's on my fault. I live in the dark. I'm on a beat.
Gene Dawson kind of seems similar to someone like Quadeca in a way. I feel like he can just do any style of music he wants, which is fitting because they went on tour together. Glimmer of God is bursting with creativity at every corner, ranging from trap to new wave. I think everyone on Earth can find at least one song they love on this thing. Favorite track is Play Dead, not the Violet Pony one. This song's only ferocious for like the last minute, and that makes it so when the aggression does come in, it's... Whew.
She had a habit of meeting all of the artists backstage.
I checked this record out exclusively because of how much I love the album cover. I just had to listen to it. And man, what a wonderfully strange collection of songs. Hotel La Route seems to focus on a new character and story every song, and it's a blast. Joanna's a lovely singer, and this album adds another song to my hyper-specific playlist of songs called Flies that are about flies. This is why videos take so long. I do shit like this in my free time. Favorite track is The Detective. So theatrical, so dramatic, so fun. I love it. Magdalena Bay's description on Spotify reads, synth pop straight from the simulation, and yeah, I couldn't have put it better myself. Capturing the psychedelic dreamlike atmospheres of early 2000s computer graphics, Imaginal Disc is as surreal as it is groovy. I know a lot of people who had this as their number one of the year, and while it didn't quite click to me to that extent, I totally understand. Great record. Also mentioned this in the last list, but favorite track is Image. Again, just go watch what I already said about it. This is my video. I get to do whatever I want. Here, I'm gonna put this on screen. They don't miss. Fans of this group should know exactly what to expect here. Soulful jazz funk fusion with crazy rhythms and grooves and Napalm's unbelievable vocals. And Love Heart Cheat Code might just be their tightest, most all-killer, no-filler record yet. Favorite track is Everything's Beautiful, but I can't not mention the preceding interlude, BMO is Beautiful. Seriously, like, Adventure Time is one of my favorite things ever. It means so much to me. And so to see a band I really love collaborate with Nikki Yang, canonically reprising her role as BMO in the song, it's just, it's fucking peak. If this album ended up being boring, I would have had the easiest joke in the world lined up. You're lucky it's fire. In what I would best describe as glitch pop sleep paralysis, Nobody's Listening warps familiar aspects of emo pop and indie-tronica into something new. There's a total of 3 songs over 7 minutes in length on this album, and even the shorter ones have song structures that feel sporadic and ever-changing. Wishlane is also a fantastic vocalist with devastatingly good writing skills. Favorite track is String Theory. That will not leave my head.
I've won many things I've done, but this one here, this one takes the cake.
Lupe Fiasco making a jazz rap concept album about Amy Winehouse as a battle rapper was definitely surprising, but honestly not as much as you might think. It's a bizarre premise for sure, but I kind of just expect shit like this from Lupe, and Samurai might be my favorite album of his. Smooth, lo-fi, jazzy production, fantastic lyricism all around, and some killer pacing. Any album that's 30 minutes gets huge bonus points from me. Favorite track? I mean, forget honorable mentions. Samurai was literally on my favorite songs list. I talked about it for like 2 minutes. Just go watch that. Fuck you. I'm putting the Mango Seal back up. 2024 had a lot of great mashup albums, from Cyane Blues' Azu Marauders to Vray's Grey and Extra North's Bumpin'. But Diamond Brick Z's combo of kawaii bass musician Snailhouse and experimental rap group Clipping took the cake for me. The contrast between the bubbly, adorable production and the macabre, violent storytelling from Daveed Diggs really shouldn't work as well as it does, but yeah, I'm not complaining. Favorite track is Shot Milk, a mashup so genius that it might have eclipsed both of its original songs for me. True to the album's theming, Igloo Ghost's latest feels more like an unearthed relic from ancient history than a new album drop. Tidal Memory XO has ocean residue and tectonic crust growing out of it. It's this bizarre new organism in the electronic scene that time just left behind. Great production from front to back, great pacing, and I absolutely love the world and aesthetic of this album. Like, look at this cover. That's the hardest shit in existence. Favorite track is Flux Cocoon. I feel like these drums are gonna make me metamorphose into a new species. Alright, let's finish this off. There were a lot of albums I loved that I had to leave off this list, even ones that didn't make the honorable mentions. This was the first year I really started to branch out with my music tastes into a bunch of brand new genres and artists, and it was a total blast. Unfortunately, I now have to reveal to you all that this was never really much of a contest. Monarch, Smile, Scrapyard, they all put up good fights, and I'm still so thrilled I got to see Porter in concert. But as great as those records and every other one I've mentioned are, they all share one problem. You see, none of them were made by wizards.
Guys, shut the fuck up!
Yeah, we're doing this. Oh, what's that? You're mad at Violet Pony taking up both of my top 2 spots? Sorry, I can't hear you. I'm too busy wizarding. I will be forever grateful for the profound emotional impact Monarch of Monsters had on me. But Girls Who Are Wizards made me just as emotional with fucking YouTube poop samples.
Would you please sit down? Hey, Mr. Firth, would you please sit down? Hey, you don't talk to my wife like this.
So yeah, this one wins. In terms of how much I replayed it, the impact it had on my year, how it helped me broaden my taste, it wins in every category. Violet Pony started her music career in the electronic scene. If you go back to her earlier works, you can very clearly see the inspiration from artists like Savant, Virtual Riot, and that one guy. What's his name again?
My name is Skrillex, man!
Thank you. Girls Who Are Wizards is the Violet Pony EDM album. It's the record she's wanted to make for over a decade, and finally had the skill, technical expertise, and artistic drive to pull it off. That brings me to the first thing I love so much about this album, how it touches on nostalgia. Nostalgia is a theme throughout a lot of Violet's music, but while in the past it's mainly been used as a coping mechanism, reverting back to old memories, Girls Who Are Wizards instead brings the past forward, fully realizing older ideas and learning to love your past artistic self. This is demonstrated in several ways throughout the album, from the writing, to samples and callbacks to several older Violet tracks. Hell, the final song on the record, In the Name of Friendship, is literally a song Violet started making in 2015, now brought full circle 9 years later, while still keeping the first 60 seconds unchanged from its original demo. But that's the real world story behind the record, because we also have the in-universe story told with Violet's original characters. Girls Who Are Wizards follows the two Alicorn partners' top 5 videos and dubstep growl, as they venture into the virtual realm of Fairy Tail on a grand quest to restore EDM to the land. It's so fucking dumb. The story is fleshed out more in the album's booklet that comes with the Bandcamp purchase, and it's like Vid and Dub have to buy potions, but the potion seller is all,
You can't handle my strongest potion.
so they completely destroy his shop until he concedes. Given that my favorite work of art ever made is a story of two best friends on a ridiculous cartoonish fantasy adventure, the story of Girls Who Are Wizards makes me so happy. Vid and Dub cheer up a lonely shadow by performing in Creature City with Shelly the android lobster.
Epic rap battles of the Locos. Aria versus Shelly the android lobster begins.
They need a magical blessing from a powerful dragon that sits atop Swag Mountain. The final boss is named fucking Stinklebug. It fully owns its silliness, but never once sacrifices any sincerity. By the time we reach the end of the journey, I feel the emotion and love from these two idiots, and it just warms my heart. But as much as I love what this record means, both for Violet the artist and Violet the person, above all else, Girls Who Are Wizard just goes so fucking hard.
What do you think of this?
Brostep, Complextro, Big Room, Rhythm, Glitch Hop, Neuro Hop, Electro House. If you can think of a style of EDM, chances are it's covered somewhere in this album. I love the constant incorporation of medieval and Baroque orchestration when this is followed by this. It makes drops feel like magic spells being cast. It rocks. Musicians of Ponyville experiments with older sound fonts reminiscent of Super Nintendo games like Chrono Trigger. The textures on Potion Seller scratch my brain. Fucking double, Toil and Trouble, Fire Burn, and Cauldron Bubble type beat. The Queen is Back just has a rap verse. Like a wizard rap verse. It's so fire.
Ronin King, all of your treasures fall into my lab. My potions could kill you, bitch, cause your ass ain't strapped.
And the sample usage on this album, Bro, Creature City blends a dozen different Pokemon cries into its drop. Several tracks have like YouTube poop ass sentence mixing in them. And if I'm not already crying after facing Oblivion to become the Lodestar, I'm absolutely crying when we reach this part on the final song.
One more time.
Like, I don't even know what more to say, man. 2024 was an absolute fucking mess for me personally, and this album was a constant source of happiness and comfort throughout it. The places this album ended up leading me have been some of the happiest times of my life. I met so many amazing people I would never have otherwise.
I've spent all my time building the community.
Fluffy, you put your YouTube.
What's up? That's my name.
Why? What the fuck?
That's my name.
Shit's bad right now. There's a lot of awful, scary things going on in the world. But for 1 hour, I can just forget all of that. To Pilfcord, you guys are the best. I'm so lucky to call myself a part of this friend group. Y'all mean a lot to me. And Violet, if you're watching this right now, hi, thank you for sharing your art with the world, for being such an inspiration, and for being a great friend.
Okay, love fight. Oh, Lil Ro has sleepy bitch syndrome.
Okay.
Be kind.
You're so rude.
So mean.
No, it's nice. It's like descriptive and honest.
Girls Who Are Wizards is my favorite album of 2024. Favorite tracks are the title track, Musicians of Ponyville, and Creature City.
Thank you. Does anyone know where I can pick up some potions?